Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Got some fun stuff to chat about today. So first things first, I'm sure you've heard about it, but we're about a month away from the Vite conference that StackBlitz is putting on. And we have a bunch of people talking about Astro. I will be there. Let's see. Wow, look at this lineup. This is crazy. Ben will be there, and I think Dan will be there, and Fred is on here somewhere. So we've got a ton of people, and I'm super excited about it. In here, I just put our Dan. I didn't put you on because I think you're talking about Solid. Is that true? Oh no, Vite for education. They gave you a Solid icon. Cool. Well, yeah, I should totally add that to this. Yeah, it was not intended as a burn. But yeah, here's what we'll be speaking about and when they're happening. So the links are here. If you want to click on them, it'll take you right to the schedule. So you know right when they're happening. So very excited about all of that. I don't think I said you, did I? I hope not. Cool. Big thing to chat about today is the Q4 roadmap. So we posted some prompts for discussion about what we should work on next, and even had some votes in the Discord channel. So we've been our heads down planning the next quarter here for the end of the year, and I wanted to share what we have coming out of that. So this is now pinned in our discussions. So there's a roadmap for Q4 here. And I just kind of wanted to go over this. So things are roughly prioritized here. Definitely more things will happen than this, but these are kind of the high level goals. And just wanted to call out, like, this is what the core team is planning to work on based on our, limited resources. But if there are other things you were really excited about, they're still on our radar. We just kind of prioritized like a few big wins, but there are definitely more high value features we want to add. So the best way to help out here is to just get involved. I mean, being here, helping with the design. If you want to champion something, we would totally love to work with you on that. So keep the experiments coming, and we'd definitely love to work on this stuff as well. So it's not off our radar. It's just not totally prioritized for this quarter. But hopefully once this quarter wraps up, we can do stuff on this list. Cool. So the big features we are looking at, these are all things that can be added in a minor release. So the biggest thing coming out of all of that discussion was people really want to be able to configure on a per page basis what is static versus what will run on the server. So we're definitely prioritizing that for this quarter. Hopefully it will come out in a minor release, which is very exciting. Some other things we're looking at is, y'all can read. I don't need to read this at you, but automatic fetch caching is a big thing we've been talking about for a while. Better support for vtest, so a way to render your Astro components. And Astro Glob is great, but there's some weird edge cases where you get like stuff bleeding through in your styles and scripts. So looking at an API to improve that. In terms of developer experience, we're really focused on a bunch of improvements for core. So stability. We're going to be refactoring some of the code base to modularize it so that it's a lot easier to reason about. Things got a little messy in the run up to 1.0. So just taking a step back and making sure we're on a solid foundation. And testing is going to be a huge focus here. So we want things like fully automated that we get. Yeah, solid foundation. Pun intended. So we had, we really want to get to 0 HMR issues and 0 errors that you can't tell where they're coming from, which would be amazing. To do that, we're going to need a lot of internal testing improvements. So just making sure we have really good coverage on all of that stuff. And we've kind of already started kicking off that work. Matthew and Bjorn have already been killing it. So that's very exciting. Kind of internal stuff, but the end result will make its way to you in a more stable foundation. So language tools, Erica is continuing to do amazing things with our language server. The top level goal is to get full feature parity with TSX files. So anything that's not working like you'd expect right now, please report it. We basically want any feature that's in a TS file to work inside an Astro file. So renaming stuff, finding references, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's been a bunch of work in progress to get the language server using our compiler output. That will be really awesome and close like 16 bugs when that lands, I think. And for those of you using something like vscode.dev or github.dev, we currently support most of the language server in the browser, but Eric is working to make sure everything works as you'd expect in the browser, which is really exciting. There are not a lot of extensions that can claim that, so that will be really cool. And then, yeah, related to the vtest support, there are just some improvements we can do to make Astro files work in JavaScript and TypeScript files better, and that will really help with the testing story. I assume you could use the language server on your phone, but I don't know of any editors that can do that. Cool. And then community stuff. We have some really awesome stuff coming that I think, I wanted Sarah to give an update here after this. But yeah, just continuing to improve our documentation, which has been getting so much love on Twitter lately. And user education for new folks is going to be a really big part of this. So there's an interactive walkthrough tutorial in the works, and we're hoping to get a lot of popular CMS integration guides out. And then we've also been working on an initial run of Astro Swag. This will probably be limited to, well, I'm not sure, but it may be limited to contributors and up for now. But we're definitely making plans for future swag that everyone can enjoy. So really excited about that. It's going to be awesome. Love the shut up and take my money. So yeah, as soon as that is available, I'm sure you all hear about it. We're really pumped about that. Yeah, Dan says it'll be a limited run at first, but we're hoping for a full run by early next year with, just well-designed stuff. So that'll be great. Awesome. Sarah, I don't know if you had more to say, but I know you wanted to give a shout out to Kevin, welcome him to the maintainers officially.
Thanks, Nate. I've always got a few docs things to say. So some of you may have noticed that actually on the server, the docs role color has changed to a fancy purple. And no one was more excited about that than Kevin for the 12 minutes that he was purple until he was blue. So welcome and congratulations, Kevin. We have been so thrilled with your contributions, especially me to the docs. It's been great, and we look forward to doing more docky stuff with you. Continuing, because I feel like this is all about Kevin, Chris, I think, is going to pop in our language tracker issue that shows how close our Spanish translators and reviewers are to getting every single page on the board. Did they sneak in a merge before the community call, or is there still one remaining? Nate, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a handy little summary there. Espanol, one missing. And I know there's a PR for it right now, and I know they've been discussing it today. So you almost made the call, but you're almost there. So everything's coming up, Kevin. Everything's coming up Spanish. Great timing with the conference going on right now. And then I think Chris has one more link to share because Docs had a bit of a celebration last week. We merged PR 265. I don't think we're quite at 1,500 yet, but we're in the 1,400s. So, ZV, your PR from March, the one that Support Squad has been linking to unofficially. So we've all been treating it like real. It's real. It's there. It's live. So for all you out there, never lose hope. Your PR might sit for 6 months. We're going to get to it. We're going to get it figured out. And yay. Lastly, oh good, we're on the doc site. This was the last little update. I was going to show you our nav bars. So Chris has done some work on left sidebar and right sidebar. Font size is a little smaller because we want the main text page to jump out at you more. That's really what it is. So 2 weeks ago, we rearranged some nav items. Last week, we changed the font size. So yes, I apologize, but you may very well be in the middle of using the docs. You click to another page and something's different. This, as we're constantly working on it. But we hope that every change we make makes things just a little bit better, even if it might throw you off in the morning, in the moment. And I think that's our docs update. So all things Kevin, all things Spanish, never lose hope. PRs are getting merged. And thank you, Chris. Site's looking great as always.
Amazing. Yeah, that font size helps quite a bit. There, great work on that. And it's just so well architected. And super exciting to see this as an official feature. It made it to 1.0, so it's not going anywhere. Underscores are here to stay. So congrats on closing the super old PR. Awesome work on that. Awesome. I also wanted to chat through some RFCs today. I think, is Erica here? No, I don't see her. That's okay. Wanted to chat through this one. So, this would be pretty exciting. There are some things that our export interface prop syntax makes it kind of hard to do in the editor tooling world. So yeah, does anyone here want to represent this? Because I don't want to host and also represent the RFC. Dan or Tony or Ben or anyone? I don't know if you've read this, but
I've read this. Sorry, but I don't know TypeScript well enough.
So I saw one of the earlier versions of this. I can talk through it a bit. I do way too much TypeScript too, so I've got some background here.
That would be awesome.
So we have props that we use in our components, but there's not really a way of adding comments to the property, so that like in VS Code, if you can have like JS doc comments or TypeScript comments, you get these really nice overlays that tell you here's exactly what the theme, like button.theme prop would even look like. It gives you, if you're doing, say you have a button theme that can be like primary, secondary, or hollow, if you can comment that in the component directly, anyone using it actually gets those kind of like hints in their editor, which is super, super handy. I think that even, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, that might hit Astro check. Like you might get type checking there, it might just be the comments. But that's, I think, the main motivation here is really being able to bubble up from a component, a single file component. Here's the property types. Here's like the expected values. Here's what the property does. It lets you author the component a lot, make it a lot easier for someone to consume it.
Yeah, awesome. Welcome, Erica. Were you here the whole time? I think you just got here.
No, I just arrived because I noticed in the thumbnail of your stream that you were looking at my RFC.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
I can give more detail if needed. I heard part of what Tony said.
Yeah, we were just kind of getting into it. So I think the main proposal here is just a change to the way we define our component interface, right?
Yeah, basically this only, for the most part, it only changes the shape how we define the types for props, right? For instance, Tony said, oh, this is going to hit Astro check, there's going to be additional type checking. Not really, because we already have a props interface and it already exactly does this. Really what it does for props, it moves it from being a props interface to being part of the component, the new proposed component interface.
Yep.
And yes, what Caleb said in chat is something I forgot to mention in the RFC, but being able to document component this way will mean that we could have an Astro doc command, for instance, that generate a website that has all the documentation for your component automatically. That's something you might have seen, like the Rust community has this a lot with the docs.rs, where it's all generated from source code. We could do the exact same thing. That'd be amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it looks like you also explored like a comment above the front matter here and separating these out. Did you want to touch on that at all? Because I think that's probably the other kind of obvious solution that would not require people migrating.
Yes. The fun fact is that this RFC was initially about this alternative. That was initially the main thing, actually. And then I changed course midway because I realized that, well, I outlined the drawbacks in the RFC, but it requires a lot of changes for us. I fear that it's going to cause a lot of turmoil for a while we update all of our stuff. And also other tools, like for instance, a VS Code extension that deals with JSDoc comment are never going to work with this unless we update them all. So I figured just having a JSDoc comment already in TypeScript is going to work everywhere. Everything's going to be nice. Maybe there's going to be some pain for us because we have to update the compiler to essentially extract that that component interface. I'm sure we can figure that out. Whereas making every single tool out there figure out why is there a JSDoc comment in the middle of somewhere, it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, so this would require like changes to our highlighter. It would like, and basically for that to ripple through the whole ecosystem would take a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it also is kind of funky. Since is this HTML? Is this JavaScript? I don't know.
It's
I mean,
Astro.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like this proposal. And we can do it in a non-breaking way, right? So
Yeah.
your interface that you already have is not going to go away. But you can kind of adopt this, is the idea.
Yeah, we'll make it gracefully either use the props interface or the component interface,
Yep.
depending on whichever is available. If you use both, I don't know what's gonna happen yet. Don't do that. Maybe. But yeah, we can definitely have a graceful migration here where nothing's gonna break and everything's gonna be amazing.
Yeah. Cool. I see the slot thing. Did you want to touch on that quickly, since I think a lot of people
Yeah, that one gets people talking a lot, but it's not really the subject of this RFC.
just noting that it is extensible.
Yeah, it's gonna be possible in the future. Like I added slots as an example to make everyone happy, but really maybe in the future we're gonna have I don't know Ziggle on Astro components, and we'll be able to add it to the interface, right? It's extendable. That's the main point I wanted to do, because typing slot, well, it has some implication that I'm not sure how to do at the moment.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a question here. Does it have to be an interface? I think it could just be a type, right?
Yeah, you can alternate between both. Like Chris said, props can already be a type or an interface, so it's going to be the same thing here.
Cool.
It should be noted that you should use interface because the TypeScript people says it's like 2 nanosecond faster to use interface than type. So
Good to know.
I've had some times where I could only use a type and interface wasn't even allowed, interestingly enough. Yep.
Weird. Cool. Are there bigger comments from the group? Definitely feel free to speak up or leave your thoughts in the chat.
Can we do this today with the current props interface, or is there a blocker that doesn't allow us to put kind of inline comments to bubble these out?
Well, you can put a comment, but right now we don't do anything with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that that's also a thing I thought at first, like, oh, what if we just add a comment to the props interface? But I figured, yeah, that makes no sense. We might as well add a component interface.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I really like that it's just a TypeScript interface, because every time I have to write what it's called view, and I have to use their custom syntax for declaring type, where you use like string with a cap or whatever how you do it. I always get so tripped up when TypeScript's right there.
Yeah, for sure.
That could
Caleb.
work, Caleb, too, but I don't know. I figured having everything in one place would be nicer. And I also think, like, in the future, if you have a component that has like props, slots, and something else or whatever we add, it would take like 5 interfaces. And I'm not sure if I like it that much.
Yeah. I think
And
the main drawback here is where, like, the goal of this RFC is to get a JS doc comment on your Astro component, and this still doesn't really solve that without moving it above the front matter or something wonky.
You could have an empty component interface. to add your GS doc comment on.
Yeah.
One question, Erica. By the way, I'm really happy to see this. I love the idea that we can, get that comment stuff bubbling up when you're using components. I think that's super, super useful. So you've mentioned before, or I don't know, maybe it was you or Nate, I don't remember. Someone mentioned how currently, if you have your props interface or type, and it's using other like certain kinds of computer types, we can't, like, that doesn't necessarily work, right? Because it's not fully a normal JavaScript export, and that's not how things are evaluated. I'm assuming the same would apply here.
I'm not sure I get what you mean, unless you're referring to what Nate was talking about exporting from Astro file.
No, so like because of what I understood in a comment the other day is like, let's say you have type equals type of something that you've imported, and then you like add that as a property of your props interface. That wouldn't always work. Maybe I misread the comment, but
No, that should work.
okay, cool.
As far as I understand, it
Yeah, I
works
think that's
right now.
Yeah, I think that's a separate issue. And notice, like, you do not actually need to export this interface. You can, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Caleb, I just wanted to point out, this is a new syntax, but it wouldn't be. I mean, it would be our recommendation moving forward, but we wouldn't break the existing syntax. Just to
And
be
if
clear.
you add more things, it doesn't break in a way.
Yeah.
That's also kind of what I like. Like in Astro 16, maybe there's going to be 16 things on the component interface, but as long as something can parse props and slot, it's still going to work, even if you use an old tool.
Right.
Hopefully, we don't have 16 things on the component interface at that moment, but
Yeah, cool. I know this is people's first time seeing this one, so definitely want to give it a bit of time for feedback. But I think this has been generally quite positive, and I'm really excited about this one. I don't know. Do you think there's anything to address here?
I didn't get what your comment was about.
Oh, my comment. So, that's a great point. Astronaut props strictly, yeah. So right now it's astronaut props. It merges with the global, which is a loose object or just a record type. So I think that's what I was asking about. If you opt into component.props, can we make it strict?
Yeah. We could actually do this right now, and the only reason I didn't do it was because I didn't want to copy paste the GS doc comment inside the language tool. That's pretty much the only reason. Because there's no technical limitation here, really. We just need to copy paste things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I won't insert that thought into this RFC. I think what you're proposing here is great and totally stands alone. So forget I said anything, but good to know it doesn't block that.
As long as you tell me the compiler is able to understand that props exist on the component interface somehow.
Yeah, that should be possible. Cool. Yeah, this will definitely be here. Unless I assume you don't. Oh yeah, sorry. Let me just address this comment from Chris. Yes, we were talking about exports from Astro components. That's specific to exports being hoisted in the compiler, so that's not, I don't think, relevant for this. Yep, only applies to exports. Cool. Erica, do you want to push for consensus? I guess we don't really do that on this call anymore. That's more a dev team thing, but generally seems positive. So definitely leave your comments on this if anyone has concerns. Cool. Thanks, Erica.
No problem.
Cool. I don't know if Yassine is here. Don't think so. So maybe this will be a bit difficult to chat about. I think so. This is coming out of some work on the Astro i18 Next plugin, which is really awesome. But I think Yassine mentioned that they were hitting a number of issues with this. So I guess the proposal here is to use the page-ssr hook to actually inject instead of, so what we do now is we create a module with the contents of the page-ssr hook. See you, Caleb. And yeah, the Astro Global is not available. And basically everything acts like a module. So yeah, this was designed for things like Tailwind, injecting CSS imports, things like that. I think the idea here is, can we expose this and actually inject things into your front matter, which needs to run a script on every page to work. So I think the proposal here is to just change the behavior, which I think I probably can't do at this point with 1.0, because there would be conflicts between variables in the front matter. But I do think there's probably something here that we are missing, and it would be really nice to expose some sort of hook on this. Does anybody have thoughts on this? I don't know if I represented it fairly. If Chris, you got anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I chatted a bit with Yassine about this. Yeah, it's an interesting use case, and yeah, I think that hook was totally designed for CSS without really thinking about the JS usage. Although it does have some kind of cool JS uses where it works nicely, like auto importing stuff and stuff like that. People are using that, I think, pretty successfully. I think there's two things here. Like, yeah, I agree. We can't really do this with the stage, the page-ssr stage at the moment, but there's no reason why, like it couldn't, there couldn't be a new stage added to injectScript that has that specific new behavior. I guess in theory. I think the other part to this, which is like kind of the other missing part of our injectScript in general, is how you target like certain routes. So right now it's kind of a bazooka, right? You just shoot your script at everything. And we don't have a way to say like, only apply to this glob or a subset of routes. Either way, yeah, I don't know. I think he highlights a couple of issues with it, right? Like the issue that if you're injecting stuff literally directly into the script, then you have serious like risk of variable naming collisions, right? Like if you inject a variable called foo and then someone else, then there's already like a variable called foo inside that script, and then that's gonna break. So I'm not sure quite what the right answer is. maybe something where it's kind of sandboxed and you have access to the Astro Global, but it's somehow not in the same scope and runs every time. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it needs some like the detailed implementation sort of path is not sketched out here.
Right. I think there is. Let me see. I remember there being a context proposal that might kind of serve this, so that you can access it from other types of files. And I think one of the issues on this one is that you know, it only works with Node, at least in the original proposal, but some generic hook that could take a request, basically middleware, is what we're talking about here. So I think that's really interesting, and if you can expose some stuff on the Astro Global or through some other method, that would hopefully solve the same problem.
Yeah, I think that's totally like he's trying to inject a global that you can then use in the front matter.
Right.
And this would be like, okay, you still have it. You just have to access it slightly differently. It's on the Astro Global instead of just in the global.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
That might still run into the same issue though, because I think his issue was also that he wanted to like do specific things per route, right? Like you want to have something that automatically looks at the page URL, figures out the language from that page URL, you know, that kind of stuff. And I don't know how easy that would be to do with a context API.
I mean, yeah, like a generic middleware API would make a lot of sense, right? Because you can just have the, you know, the first path is the language, and then if you could, with that middleware, if you could expose something on the Astro Global, some context would be really useful. Yeah, I'm glad we talked about this. I'd love to chat with Yassine a bit more and understand the use case here. There's definitely something missing, and I I don't like anybody hacking around and struggling to work with the APIs. So would love to kind of unify some of these different RFCs and come together on a feature set here.
Where's my mute? Sorry,
Yes,
can I
great.
just chap in? Last
Yeah.
bit there, right? It's like this conversation that Yassine was having, trying to get around the next set of improvements he wants to do to the Astro Internet, this particular package, is if we could help unblock them, it would really help the community and the user base out so much. Got a lot of hope for this particular package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's enough design here to move forward with this RFC, but definitely exposing like a problem. Yeah, that's a good point with the docs, Chris, that you have to pass in the Astro Global. Yeah, I mean, on the Q4 roadmap, I would definitely say this is something we talked about. Both of these really is something that is still in our minds. So if somebody, it seems like Yassine would love to work with the team and get a solution here. I think something together might make sense here, combining these two ideas. But yeah, that would be really exciting. Awesome. Are there any closing thoughts? Interesting. Yeah, the Astro Global being passed around is a really interesting one. I have thoughts there. I don't know if I can think of a solution. Because the reason we have the Astro Global is because it's an Astro file that we generate. Yeah, it's interesting. So like, I think what this points out is that, I guess it was the other one, that you have kind of the Astro Global for API endpoints, which is nice because again we can pass stuff into those, but the global aspect of it is difficult for JS files and such, unless we were transforming every JavaScript file, which is kind of a performance bottleneck. See lots of people typing. Erica says it's so easy for editor tooling. Yeah, I think there could possibly be an Astro Global in 2.0 that has a different shape, that is actually a global. But it wouldn't have, like, I feel like most of the things you want that for are like the request and things that don't really work as an actual global. Yeah, it could possibly be importable from like a virtual file maybe. But again, like with an Astro file, we have the actual request that we can trace, and when it's just a JavaScript module, we don't necessarily have that info unless it's a function. Yeah, lots of issues there. All right, thank you for listening to me ramble on. I had one more thing I wanted to get to here, which is somebody mentioned that we reload the server now when we find a Astro config that needs to be updated, which is awesome. And they said, hey, what about Tailwind.config? Can I hot reload that? So there's not any hooks right now for having an integration, like define a file that we could do. I feel like we could potentially just look for any config files in the root, and yes, Ben is saying give an inch, Tailwind takes a mile. But I do think any like TS config is another one that's come up. Like any .config file in the project root could be interesting to just reload the server when that happens. I don't see any huge downsides to that, but maybe Ben has some more thoughts as the person that implemented it.
I mean, no. It's one regex that I'm finding in our source code right now to show how easy it is. Just remove the word Astro from it, and we're done. It wouldn't reload for any config. TS config is a little funny because it's not a .config file. Right. So I don't feel as good about that one. Yeah. It almost feels like a special case because we always expect TS configs in your project, so I'd be fine having that as a separate case. And then for the rest, anything that's .config, whatever, as long as it's in the root of your project, it feels safe enough to me.
Right.
Worst case, we reload too much. That's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't feel like this maybe needs a full RFC because it seems like an enhancement to a feature that we have.
It does. Yeah, okay. It does.
Cool. So that's good. I can definitely leave a comment to that effect. yeah, another comment here. What about when package.json changes? I think
That one I worry about. I guess it would work, but if they're trying to import from their package JSON, I could see that being useful. Because I've done that.
But I think if you're importing it, it would already be hooked up, right?
I would think. It'd be weird if it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel like the effect, if you like import that new dependency, yeah, when you run it in a file, it should reload. But yeah, Erica, very good point on. Oh, okay, I totally understand the use case there. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Because sometimes people put configs inside package.json.
Oh, I hadn't considered.
Yeah, I think yeah, post.css.config.js would follow kind of what I'm proposing here. But could also be nice if it doesn't break stuff too much. Yeah, the TS config is a little harder. But if you update your aliases, like we should restart the server, so kind of makes sense. But yeah, the dependencies of dependencies problem is very fun. And there's really no way to implement that without knowing what the whole dependency tree of the config files are. Super fun. All right, cool. Yeah, well, this definitely seems like a discussion that we can kind of spin off in the dev channel. Ben, would you mind leaving a comment here? Just with
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Just that this is something we could look into. That would be super cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think did I share the link to the roadmap directly? I may not have, but here it is. I think conversation is locked, but definitely feel free to leave feedback in the feedback and ideas channel. Feel free to get involved. All of this stuff, just to reiterate, is stuff that we really, really want. So it's definitely going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when. And like personally, I want to keep working on this on the side. It's just not. These are some smaller things. Well, at least these three are smaller things that are really high value. And this is a huge thing that's very high value. So that's kind of our bandwidth for the quarter. But there will definitely be more stuff happening, and anything people want to get involved on, we would love to work with you. So please let us know. Awesome. I think that's it. Unless anybody has any other announcements for the community. But I heard a kathunk. Oh, did I hear a kathunk?
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that I was doing a community showcase on Fridays, around the same time as the RFC, around this time on Friday. So if you're around, that'll be fun if you pop in.
Nice. Is there an event?
Yep, there's an event made up for it. Yeah, I'll just share that quickly. Discord just makes you
Community showcase. I found it.
Yay. That's it.
Amazing. Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I think that's it for this week. Definitely leave your feedback. Let us know how everything's going. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate this discussion every week.